Hello and welcome to another episode of the Roach Koach podcast, the journey to create the new metal canon. My name is Lorin Kozlowski. With me, as always, the original Roach Rider, Mr. Matt
Keep
Naas.
it rolling, baby.
Thank you, Matt. Matt,
Buddy.
we have an episode today.
Oh, chock full.
Chock full of new metal goodness. We are going to be talking to the men running the Louisville Loves Nu-Metal show coming up July 20th, Headliners Music Hall, Louisville, Kentucky. We're talking to those guys. Before we get into it, though, as we record this, we have to talk about a loss to the nu metal world, a loss to the music world. Shifty Shellshock of Crazy Town passed away as we record this. He had passed away yesterday at the age of 49.
Wow.
And a man with a storied past, a troubled past, but as has been pointed out in many of a remembrance that I read today, Matt, he's the guy amongst all the other guys. Linkin Park, Deftones, Korn, Limp Bizkit. You know who went to number one with the nu metal song? Crazy Town.
Yep.
Shifty Shellshock went to number one. And someone, I don't know who it was, and I apologize for not citing them, said, that a song like Butterfly, in a crazy way, is going to be played forever. For one, it was a number one song, but in another way, it's just indelible. People know the lyrics.
Yep.
You can just say, just today, people are like, who passed away? And you go, come, my lady, come, my lady. And they're like, oh, that guy. Oh, And when you have that impact, on culture and on the world, it's worth a lot. And we've had a lot of fun sometimes.
I was going to say the same thing. Like,
yeah,
I would say Crazy Town has been the punchline of a lot of jokes. A lot of jokes. Some of them fair, some of them, or most of them unfair. The thing is, they did it. Like, no matter what, Butterfly and truly Starry Eyes Surprise, those are forever bangers. Those will be played way after I'm gone. That's hard to do. That's
very
nearly like, do you know how hard that is?
It's very hard to do. It's very hard to do. There are bands who are sitting there who are like, I would kill for that. I would kill for that.
Right.
Yeah.
One song that people identify you with. He got like two. Others would argue he had more than that, but like the mass would be like, those two songs rip. They're great. We love them. I listened to Starry Eye Surprise today.
There you go.
God, this song rules.
There you go. And I mean,
I was in a Journeys.
You were in a Journeys. Well, there you go. But yeah, as we pointed out, his solo record, was a record. He was coming from a place of joy, of having fun, and obviously had his demons. And those are the things that kind of can haunt you through your life and can kind of haunt you reputationally. But I think in the long term, people will remember that song. And I think the other thing that's helpful about it is, or hopeful, I should say, is that that's a song. It's a party song. That's a song that's going to be coming up anytime people are going to be having good time vibes, and I think it's something that I think maybe now it'll have a tinge of melancholy to it, but people will always, I think of it fondly. So to Seth Binzer, Shifty Shellshock, we salute you.
Thank you for the good times.
Thank you, sir, for the good times. I think that's the perfect transition now, Matt, to our conversation.
Talking about a good time.
We talked with Zach, Brian, and Corey of Louisville Loves Nu-Metal, July 20th, Headliners Music Hall. Matt, would you say it's fair to say that we chopped it up with the boys?
Buddy, we were running and gunning and chopping it up like madmen.
It was great to chop it up with these guys and talk about the ups and downs of doing these types of shows and what they have in store for this year's Louisville Loves Nu-Metal. No spoilers, but some hints. And enough from us. Let's get to us and them.
Let's do it.
Well, everybody, we've been talking about it. Louisville Loves Nu-Metal is coming up July 20th. Headliners Music Hall. It will be the show of shows. And we have three gentlemen here with us who are, some may say, the brainchilds, the masterminds behind it. Zach, Brian, Corey, welcome to Roach Koach. Welcome. We're excited to have you guys back. Corey, this is your first time. Zach, Brian, you're returning guests. Louisville Loves Nu-Metal. I don't know. Are we calling it part 2? Are we calling it the return, or is it just 2024 edition?
The text chat is officially named LLNM2. So I think if that can serve as an official answer, yeah, we tend to, Zach and I have been doing these shows for a long, we do the emo shows and these new metal shows, and we always number them. I don't think anyone cares, and I don't think we publicly number them, but when we refer to them, we always refer to them by number. So a little behind the scenes knowledge for you there.
Okay, perfect. So this is part 2. I guess my first question right out the bat is, and a lot of people are going to be asking this, is why a part 2? Why do it again? Why do it again?
Zach?
Yeah, that's a great question. I ask myself every single day. Honestly, I don't know if we told you guys this story last time, but the genesis of all these concerts was Brian asked me, hey, I want to put a cover show together like in 2018. Got any ideas? And I was like, what if we did emo, right? And emo hadn't really re-emerged as kind of the thing that everyone loved, but I loved it, and it was obviously popular for a long time. And one of the jokes we have about that show was it was really just an elaborate plan for me to get to see Emmanuel reunite from Louisville, and B, just play in the reunion show. So it was like this really elaborate way for me to
Costs us
play.
a lot of time and a lot of money.
Yeah, but the problem is it went so well that I've now had to keep I like conned myself somehow into like doing 8 of these shows now, and I'm like, oh man, I should have just not done the Emmanuel reunion. It'd be so much easier. But no, the simple answer is the reason we did the Nu-Metal show was because the emo ones had gone so well, and Nu-Metal is just as big, if not bigger, than emo, and we love it just as much. And so we thought, why not? And then that show went really well, and we're like, shit, now we have to do it again. So, you got to give the people what they want. So
yeah, we partially blame you. I mean, Roach Koach jumped on board so quickly. When we announced this show, you guys showed up, you gave us a bunch of good coverage, and now there's a lot of demand. So
we're actually here to demand an apology.
Well, none given, because Nu-Metal is back, baby. Nu-Metal is here,
and it's here.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
It never went away. One could argue.
One could argue
that, absolutely. So with this one, you're going into number 2. Are there things that you learned from number 1 that you're like, okay, we're not going to do that again, versus things you learned from number 1, like, we definitely got to do that again, that really hit? Any thoughts on that? Yeah,
so part of the answer to that question is why Corey is here, which is we got a lot of feedback about song selection, and we were like, well, we need a Nu-Metal OG who doesn't always just think commercially. So Corey, why don't you explain a little bit of the role you've taken on this year?
So last year I was fortunate enough to play. It was a great experience. I had a great time, and then coming up to this year's Louisville Loves Nu-Metal, the guys asked me to get a little more involved about helping pick songs, musicians, just trying to kind of get it put together. Some of the feedback we got last year was, how come you didn't play this band, or how come you didn't play this song? And there's obviously only so much you can do in a short time. Can't please everybody, right? But I remember the guys sent me the initial set list, and there was like, forgive me, Brian. But
he's about to throw me under the bus on the list. I can cut you off at any point, Corey.
It's Louisville Loves Nu-Metal featuring Hinder. I'm like, okay, can't do that. Can't do that.
It's gonna crush.
Oh God. Louisville Loves Butt Rock is next year.
That's your next endeavor. Yeah.
So this is part of the whole conversation, right? Like it's an interesting thing, and you guys, you're squarely sort of in the Nu-Metal scene, right? So I'd be interested in your opinion on this. There's so much overlap. in any of these scenes, emo does this a little bit. Nu metal does this a lot. And if you're a certain age, you were listening to all this stuff. So I was, in college listening to all of these scenes, and there were certain things, yes, they felt a little bit distinguished, but in a lot of ways they overlapped a lot. And so, we're living in an age where the categorization of things is not as important because you make these playlists on Spotify and you put everything on there that you like, right? But at the same time, we want people to know sort of what they're getting. And we knew that Zach and I knew we needed a little bit nu metal street cred. So we were like, all right, let's bring Corey in, and he can talk us down from the hinder and the puddle of mud.
Which I did, thankfully.
Thank you, Corey.
Corey, thank you so much.
These two guys are very excited. They're going to like the show way more because you're involved. That's part of the reason I'm making sure they know that this is all the credits due to you here.
It's very funny because I literally was in the supermarket last week and Lips of an Angel was playing, and I sent a text to Jenny and Matt and said, I feel like I'm in the crack right now, like hearing this song. So thanks for intercepting that. Corey, when you were looking at the set list then and bringing in, were you thinking just other popular nu metal bands? Were you thinking more deep cuts? I mean, I'd say the last time there was there were a few more deep cuts than I think a lot of people anticipated, and which I was very much on board for, because sometimes people think it's just going to be like Limp Bizkit is doing now, break stuff twice, and I think it was a little more varied than that. What would you say? Was there anything, without diving into spoilers, was there anyone that you were like, oh, we definitely got to get these guys in, or maybe these guys we don't need so much of this time around?
Oh yeah, there's definitely going to be a couple tracks this year that I think are definitely deep cuts. We actually had a whole section. So when we did the song selections for the band, Zach's direction was one deep cut song per band. So we got to do like sort of pick a slower song, which would be a little more. I think most of those are pretty commercial, popular, and then we each got to kind of select like a deep cut song. So I selected quite a few of those, and it was really hard because when I was envisioning the set, I'm very active on stage, and like I really, I'm like thinking of the tunes, like, okay, what can I go up there and just like absolutely go like, balls out to. And so of course a lot of that deep cut stuff comes across, right? But I was really grateful that they were Zach and Brian were really open-minded with some of that stuff. I grew up, I'm 39, so that ages me a little bit, but like, I grew up in like the prime of nu metal and Ozfest and bands like Pulse Ultra, and I mean I could go on and on and on and on. So it's going to be exciting this year. I can't wait to see the reaction.
Corey too he might disagree with this, but Corey was in one of the best like nu metal adjacent original bands in Louisville, in the Clear, for a really long time, right? And so I think that's another thing, is like Louisville as a city has a history of nu metal bands like Flaw and Primer 55, Days in the New, and all those guys, and then like in the Clear, MSD, Villbillies, right? Like there were a lot of bands of that era, original, local, national touring, everything in between, like so I think that's part of it. And I mentioned we had an Emmanuel reunion, effectively like a quasi reunion, at our first emo show, and half of the people there didn't know who Emmanuel was because they were, it was just not their era, but the half that did, it was like the coolest thing that they'd ever seen, right? So like you got to please both crowds, right? You got to get the fair weather fans involved, and you also got to get the diehards involved. And so Brian and I are better now at the fair weather stuff, although I've been notorious for picking deep cuts. I was like you once, Corey, when I was the second emo show, my whole set was deep cuts, and we found out afterwards that was not a good decision.
I mean, part of this too, right? Like we always explain, like we have a responsibility to make the room just electric. That's what we're going for. And so there is a balance that has to be struck when we do this. And we figured out from doing now like our 8th show or whatever this is, that there is some math to it. And I'm not a math guy, right? Like I don't typically like to rule by math, but when you look at what people are playing on YouTube and on Spotify and what numbers look like, there's a way to do some math and say, this is, even if you don't love this song, in the room, this song is going to be be electric because
Mhm.
enough
Yeah.
people are going to know it and
So
feel it.
that's why you're playing Daddy by Korn. Okay.
You got it.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
A real nightmare.
Yes.
It-
What's funny is like there was this isn't giving away much, but like I wanted to do Passenger as like our slow song. And
Mm,
then I was like, dude, I'm so sorry. My bug zapper behind me is going like
You're good.
crazy. So,
Don't even worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
but
That was the guy who wanted to do Passenger just now.
that was the idea. Just buzz right in there.
No, thank you.
Yeah. But like, I was dead set on it. And then I listened to it, and I was going, okay, if there was a room full of me, I would love that because I've never seen that song live,
Right.
And then I was thinking, the crowd last year probably gonna be pretty similar to this year. I just don't know that's gonna go over very well. You know what I mean? So for those of us that are really into that time period, there's plenty of songs like that you would consider like, oh, that's like one of the greats. But when you look at this crowd and the people you're bringing in that are new to nu metal, surprisingly, you really got to kind of think outside the box. And that's where Zach and Brian really they keep me in check.
Well, last year we had a lot of young folks, to your point, Corey. Like we had a lot of kids in the audience, more than we've ever had at our emo shows. And so there is a balance of what is going to translate across the room. And so, some of those bangers will be back. We called them bangers on the list that we made. We said, here are the bangers that we know worked. And here's a bunch of new stuff we haven't tried. And here's stuff that has, hundreds of millions of plays. Yeah, and here's stuff that has a little bit less than that, but seems like it would be part of the scene, and just trying to mix all that up. And Corey was instrumental in helping us really figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I remember you guys did at the emo night was that you had songs playing in between sets that almost felt like testing the waters. Like, how do these play?
Did someone set you up with that question? Because that's 100% what we were doing.
No, I mean, that just seemed to be the move, and which I think is smart. And so I was wondering if that was something that you had done at the first metal night and then kind of gauged off of that.
Holiday Kirk will be back, and we'll definitely be doing that again. My joke at emo night is we have one particular guy who's been passionate he's played shows on and off our entire existence, and he always suggests we play modern baseball, and I am just not convinced that will work. And so we came up with a system of, we'll just play all this stuff in between, and then I literally walk out in the crowd and watch in those in between sets to see if people get into it or not. And we start to sort of make notes for next year's list. So we did a little bit of that, and we'll definitely be doing that again this year. So nothing is by accident typically. Between any time you walk, from when you walk in the doors to when you leave, we try to make sure it's a full experience.
Yeah.
And not only do we do that, but we have other people do that to us. So Janelle, who's taken a lot of photos for us over the years, sent me a video this week at a different show of Daylily by Movements, and being like, look at this crowd full of millennials losing their minds. Like, we can do this at emo night. Like, they're just like trying to influence the set list, and we all have our soft spots. Like, I've gotten a Thrice song on almost every emo night because they're my favorite band. And even I can admit, like, they don't always go as hard. Like, basically the Artist in the Ambulance does really well, and everything else is too obscure for most people. So then you kind of have to get your own ego out of it. And as a performer, and Corey can speak to this too, like, a song that you may not like listening to or even playing, when you play it in a room full of people that love it, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it becomes fun, because even if it's just dumb, like a single note, just chugging bass line or something, like if everyone in front of you is screaming their head off and like rocking out and jumping around, you feel like you're like on cloud nine. Right. So
Break Stuff.
Even if it's not your favorite, well, Break Stuff is also just an awesome song.
It's an awesome song, but it's also like two notes. Like,
Like the example from the emo show that was like that for us was I was in Foxbat for one of the shows, and we did Red Jumpsuit Apparatus. I think it's Down or Push Her Down or whatever. Face down. Yeah. And we all learned it, and we all practiced it, and we were just staring at each other, and we're like, this song is so boring to play. Like just musically, it's just like it's like a 4-chord pop song, right? That sounds like a metal song. But when we played it live, like, people lost their minds, and we were like, okay, well, that was fun. Like 95% of learning and practicing that song was not fun, but the 5% where we got to execute it live was actually fun to do. And there's stuff like that you kind of don't know until you try it, you know, or
Mhm.
you play your favorite song and no one likes it and you just feel like shit afterwards, or you're like, well, that was really awkward. So but that's something you learn from doing this as much as we have. So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can say that when at the Nu Metal night last year, I remember like a song like Outside isn't necessarily like one of my favorites, but like when it started, I was like, I'm in the zone right
It's
now.
the real motherfucking
The
deal.
real
y'all.
motherfucking deal. Like, this is so exciting. And
Also,
actually,
shouts to Holiday Kirk on that song, because he was not supposed to come out and sing. We had not planned that, and he came out and started doing harmonies, and we were all like, "Oh my god, someone give that guy a mic!" So he might, no spoilers, he might get to sing this year based on his performance on that song.
I got to say, when he came out to do what is considered the real motherfucking deal part, I was like, this night is made. Like, it's all gravy from here, guys.
Exactly.
Yeah. To go back to the passenger conversation from earlier, though, it is interesting though that one ultimately you felt wasn't going to make it, because I can tell you that seems to be like the sleeper song of Deftones. Partially, I think, because it has the Maynard connection. But I can tell you, when I saw Deftones in 2010 and they played that song, that was like a everybody leave the bar, everybody get out of the bathroom, passengers happening, you know, like, and this was early smartphones, so it was like not really like, you know, everything, but you could feel like it was a moment like I didn't realize this was gonna happen. I was gonna get to experience Passenger. So that might be one test in the waters. Maybe Louisville Loves Nu-Metal 3.
Corey, are we adding it back in?
It's no, dude. I can't add or take away any more songs at this point. I'm already doing things that I never thought I would do.
Well,
But,
what's funny about Corey saying that is that Zach and I know. So he started and he's like, guys, I'm going to stick to all the rules you gave me. We're going to do it this way. I'm going to tell all the musicians they have to do this. And Zach and I are just texting each other on the side being like, oh, he's so sweet. He thinks this is how it's going to happen. And Zach knows from corralling musicians for 6 or 7 years doing this, that we're always making concessions and we're always having these conversations. And we tend to be pretty open because people are investing a lot of time and energy into this, and we want it to be fun. But there are also things we've learned where we can save you from being embarrassed on stage.
Well, what's hard about it is that it's hard enough to have a band in general, and then when you like have a random band that you just put together, and you're like, hey, let's play some of these songs, and then have a guy like me, it's like, hey, that doesn't sound like that. You need to like fix it. You know what I mean? Like, it needs to sound like the song. And then you have guys that are younger, that are maybe more from like the emo era, they are asking to play these older songs, and they're like, no, man, I want to play, my Last Resort, or like, you're like, dude, we're playing Change by the Deftones. Like, you want to pick Last Resort over that? Like, it's the Deftones, So it's weird. There's this like age gap.
All those bad ideas just dying in the background.
I know. Look, I sit out here all the time, and I've never heard this thing be this active. So I don't know. I'm a stink or something. But yeah, there's definitely a gap there. But like we just rehearsed on Sunday, and we're starting to bring singers in this week, and I'm totally satisfied and very excited that it's going to go very well. So I'm happy with our set list.
Something Corey probably won't brag on himself about either, but I think Brian and I can, is Corey is a like professional cover musician outside of this. And so, while he was in an original rock band for a really long time, and he was obviously professional at that too, like Corey's kind of seen what it takes to put on, a 10,000 person country cover gig, right? And like playing some of the biggest songs ever written in front of, thousands of people who know every single word. So it's like his level of investment and professionalism, regardless of what the tune is, regardless of the genre or the song, is really high. But then now he's also getting to play stuff he personally loves, right? So it's like he's going to go doubly hard on it, right? Like he would put that much effort into a shitty, top 40 country generic song that he doesn't like. He would still show up and kick its ass. So of course he's going to kick the Deftones song's ass, and yeah, so that's another really exciting thing for us, is most of the people, the songs they're playing are the songs they love, right? Every now and then, especially if you're like in the band where you have to play a whole set, like you might not like 2 or 3 of the songs or love 2 or 3 of the songs, but the other 5 you're playing are 5 of your favorite songs. It's like it's what you do to get to be on stage, right? Like I didn't want to play face down, and I had a great time doing it, but I also got to play, a bunch of other stuff that I love. So,
I think
and
it's
it ends up
also.
being,
Go ahead. Sorry.
that's it.
I think there's when I was looking at songs, I was also looking for moments, right? I think the what people when you sit there and think about a set list, you got to find moments, songs that have moments that are really big and that like captivate a crowd. Like as goofy as it sounds, the Biloxi, this is the real motherfucking deal, y'all, is a moment.
Yeah.
And everyone remembers that moment.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And there are so many songs out there from that time period where I'm sure we're all guilty of this. Like, oh, I love a song just because of the breakdown or the bridge or the chorus, right? And so we tried to be really creative with our set to really try to mesh some songs together to capture those moments and it just really cover that base of what like core nu metal is.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but to Corey's point, guys, one thing that's different about this year, and this is something that Zach and I have wanted to incorporate, but we needed somebody who thinks like Corey to help us do it, to direct the musicians. And I think we're going to cover more songs than ever.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I have to say the thing that was great about the first one, that was great about the emo show, was that it just moved and flowed. And so even if, like you said, if a song necessarily didn't hit whatever, then it's like next song's coming, we're moving, and the transitions between bands was always smooth, and and the vibe. I gotta say, the crowd at Nu Metal Night, the crowd at emo night was a vibe of people ready to have a great time, ready to party. The grand finale at the emo night with the balloons, unbelievable. And so I mean, I was kind of like, these guys just have to kind of just not really mess with success too much with this, because you kind of really kind of nailed it
We're
largely
always
with the
trying to
first one.
figure out the little tweaks, right? Like, how do you make it just a little bit incrementally better?
Yeah.
And you touched on something that I think is important, and to a certain point, like, I have become less and less involved on stage as these things have grown, but I've continued to stay around in the background, because what's so important to me is that Zach and I have accidentally built this amazing community, and we didn't mean to do it. And I think that's sometimes the best things happen that way. We thought, hey, we'll play music with our friends, we'll play songs we like, we'll give great musicians a spotlight. But what's also happened is we've given a lot of people, especially with the emo shows, something to do that first weekend of December that they look forward to all year. And we have people, I'm not making that up, I have people come and tell me that, and that's really meaningful, that we, all of this music and all the shit that we go through day to day, right? And we get to, but we've had, the thing we have in common is all these tunes we used to listen to, or still listen to, or still love, and are able to come together and find people who love those things and meet new people through it. And it's really a powerful thing to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
I won't stop till we have our first wedding on stage. That's my.
I mean, it's coming. It's coming. You know that
definitely.
there are love connections happening 100%, because that's the thing. You have a nice mix. It's not a sausage fest in there. Ladies, guys.
Bawa to ba hits, lights go out. Processional, but dang diggy diggy, they come up. Your name is.
Did you guys leak him the day of show run? With he knows the whole plan.
He knows about the processional. Damn it!
He knows about the whole. Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. We're really intentional about who we choose to perform and how we do marketing and all that stuff for that reason. So, for example, our shows haven't always been all ages, and that was something kind of from day one that the first show, like, we had no idea how it was going to go at all, so we just kind of did whatever happened, and it went really well, like I said. But from that point forward, like Brian said, we're trying to think, how do we make it better? And Brian and Corey both have kids, and their kids are now old enough to like go to concerts and listen to some of the same music they listen to and all that stuff. And I mean, that change alone a couple years back to me has really elevated the show. We don't act like there's kids there. We still cuss and play these horribly loud and offensive songs, but there's kids in the mosh pit, and like everyone's just having a good time. And I think, to your point, it becomes like, even though we all share the same genre interests, the audience is really eclectic. Like you said, we have a lot of women, a lot of diversity in there. And we want it to be that type of thing. And I think going back maybe to Corey's point about playing Passenger by Deftones, like Deftones and Thrice are very similar bands in a lot of ways. Like they're not the biggest bands of their genre, but the people who love them, it's their favorite band, and they're like a cult band in a lot of ways. And if we did a Deftones only show, like the people who came to that, it would be the best thing that ever happened. It would just be like, it just wouldn't be for everyone, right? Like we'd get 100 people to come hear their favorite songs, but we'd rather there be 600 people there and play 2 or 3 Deftones songs that cater to those people and the larger audience, right? So in order to have that vibe, we kind of have to pick the songs we pick and pick the performers we pick. We have young people, we have older folks like ourselves, right? We try to get as many women involved as we can, which is not easy to do in the nu metal genre specifically. It's a little bit easier in emo. Just to find performers who like this stuff and know the material and want to do it. But
well, and
we
to
try our
another,
best,
another point about inclusiveness, right, is that, you know, we were really struck a few months ago, Queer Kentucky, the local magazine in our state, and published by a nonprofit that is for the LGBTQ community, published an article by a guy named Stephen Carr called Slipknot Made Me Gay. And it is specifically about how this guy found his queer identity through his love of nu metal. And we called him and we're like, dude, how do we, like, I don't even know how to involve you, but we would just want to have like an open invitation to you, to your friends, to that community, because I have a feeling in the year 2000, it was probably a little harder to fit into that community, to merge those two communities together. And so we actually have a partnership with, we've invited Queer Kentucky to give away tickets and to bring whoever they want, and just to try to make this a space that really truly is back to that community thing for everybody.
That's fantastic. That's great. And I mean, I can see that though, because I mean, we're talking about a bunch of guys on stage in mass, very theatrical, you know, living their truths. You know, that's the thing. When you see some people up there living their truth, then you're gonna live your own truth. Absolutely.
Yeah, or being an outcast from a small town, right? Like that's so many people's story, especially LGBTQ people, right? And then being able to like express yourself and also, for what it's worth, the thing I like about the way we do the emo nights and the nu metal nights is I really like screamy music. It's not for everyone, right? But we have in our kind of repertoire of musicians like world-class screamers, right? Like the kind of people that you're just like, God damn, like Chester Bennington type, you know, just people who can really throw down and you know, you don't get that as much at a DJ night, you know, not to like talk kind of negatively about those, but like part of what made these shows so fun was there's a real person screaming in your face, you're screaming in their face, they're handing you the mic, you're handing like, right. So that's really the vibe we're trying to capture. And I think that, you know, in a world where a lot of us probably want to scream more often than we do because of everything from my phone battery died, I'm in traffic, to like I lost my job, my house, my family member, right? Like, and all the horrible stuff that can happen. Like sometimes the best thing you can do is just like, fuck, you know, just like let it all out. Like that's why break stuff like resonates with so many people, right? It's just one of those days. Like I say that unironically at least once a week, where I'm just like, God, it's just one of those days, you know? And yeah, so I think being a space where you can do that loudly and not feel like a weirdo because everyone around you is doing it, right? And you fit in and you belong, and your love for being that person. And you know, if you're at the grocery store and you're screaming a Slipknot song while the Hinder's playing over the PA, maybe that's not as, you know, conducive of an environment.
Well, that makes me nothing.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're doing that at headliners like with us, you're
gonna be fine.
It's all good.
Corey, I was worried that bug zapper got you. There was a blue light that flashed. I was like, oh shit, no.
Look, it was.
I hope you play bass. Yeah, you've got to step.
Right. There was a lightning bug flying towards it. I was going, "Oh God, if that gets in there, it's never going to stop." So I was like, "I got to unplug it." There's one thing I want to say real quick. Is the guys talk so nicely about me when you were talking about how well the show runs. When you see what happens behind the scenes, on how organized and professional it is. Like I do this like quasi, not necessarily for a living, but it's like a second job for me. And I do a lot of cover stuff. And I will tell you that 90% of the gigs that I play, you know, are kind of, they're not as near put together and organized as this is. And I'm talking, I played some pretty big ones. I just played in front of like 7,000 people in Bardstown, Kentucky. And like get there, the sound guy's not ready to sound check. It's like there's always something. But when I showed up last year, I was so impressed on how organized and how you said the vibe with the musicians was really good. Everyone was just happy to be there. Like there was this like sort of nervous energy, positive energy in the air. Like I just knew it was going to be an exciting night. And it's been a long time since I've been able to be in that room specifically in front of that many people playing that type of music. And it was just like this whole reinvigorating thing for my soul. Like I needed it. And I was so grateful. And those two you can tell they've done this before. It's definitely well run. They're professionals. And the musicians that get to play it this year for the first time they're in for a treat. Because it doesn't always go that way. That's for sure.
And you definitely weren't at the first one if you said all the things.
I was not.
The second one.
Figured it out over time.
Really around the third one is where we figured our shit out. But yeah, I appreciate the kind words.
That is perfect. Well, before we let you guys go, I would be remiss if I didn't ask, and even though I'm not asking for myself, I'm asking for our listeners, I'm asking for some friends of mine. You have brought it up. Some would say threatened. Louisville Loves Ska. Is it going to happen?
First of all, let me say, there's like a regular ska night at Mag Bar. I did not know for years that was happening, but I think it's still happening. So I will give a shout to that. I don't know how often it happens. I will say, as a kid who was raised in a Christian household, and I thought the OC Supertones invented ska. I would love to do ska and actually redeem myself of that opinion. I don't know. Zach and I have these conversations all the time where I say, what about this? What about this? What about this? And a lot of times what we end up doing is putting them on ice until we start to see, and I always defer to him because he has this sixth sense where we start to see the cultural momentum moving towards it. But it's not all the way there yet.
That fourth wave.
Yeah, let's go jump on that fourth wave. So what I'm saying is when ska fully reemerges, we will try to be about 6 months ahead of that reemergence.
Yes, we will be early on it.
I
have
a few friends.
I have a few friends that DM me all the ska memes because I threatened to do this show, and they're like, Zach needs to see the current state of ska memes so that it influences his decision making. And I love ska growing up too. I would not be doing it ironically. Like Less Than Jake, Catch-22, like that was all like Real Big Fish, all that stuff.
Here's the one that Zach and I have talked about seriously enough. We've not thrown this to very many people, so this will be fun. The only other one we've talked about to maybe seriously pursue at some point is Louisville Loves. I don't know what we would call it, but we've been calling it Louisville Loves Women, which is weird. But
I think the ladies, Louisville Loves
the ladies, which would be like 90s female artists covers only. So Alanis Morissette, No Doubt, Sixpence None the Richer, Meredith Brooks, Donna Lewis.
Donna Lewis.
Next to my Donnas. But Natalie Merchant, like all of that stuff, right? I mean, there's a whole subculture of that right now. I have a teenage daughter and that's all she listens to. Everything sounds like Mazzy Star. And then I showed her, she came home a few weeks ago and she was like, Dad, have you heard of this artist Fiona Apple? And I was like, oh girl. And she's like, I'm like, she's considers herself bisexual. She's like, I might go fully lesbian over this. I'm like, yeah, that's, wow. There's a lot of people that have had that reaction, but that's one, I don't know. Like maybe this is how the ideas start. I mean, we were doing this around nu-metal years before, and then eventually it became a real thing we were doing. So who knows? You heard it here first.
I love this idea. I love this idea because my first thought, and Matt, you know what I'm going to say. Natalie and Bruglia tour. Let's make it happen.
Make it happen. Lorin,
that's Carlton, 5,000 miles.
Oh,
1,000 miles. Sorry.
No, but we're going to play it 5 times. So it would be 5,000.
5,000 miles. The Pretenders with Vanessa Carlton.
Yeah,
exactly. I know, just mixed them up.
Listen, the pit when that piano hits. Get out of the way.
Well, and Brian knows me that if we did do this and we did do that song, that I would require that we have a full-size piano and an orchestra for it, because like That's what I'm always wanting to do.
That's
And
what
they're
we
having
want
to
to
be
do.
like,
Is always
we
want
can't
it
afford
to
that. And I'm
be-
like, but what if?
Yeah, I mean, but part of this, especially with the emo stuff, is like, how do we create this as genuinely as possible, right? So we've over the years we've tried things like bringing in a string section, and our favorite story is that we brought in a full string section for an emo song, and at the bar afterwards, we were like, dude, how dope was that string section? And like 4 people were like, there was a string section on stage. We were like, damn it, we spent so much money on that. They're like, oh, we just thought that was a sample. So, I mean, it's a balance between
To be fair, they wouldn't know the word sample and also notice it. But yeah, they didn't notice it at all. Everyone's just drunk singing along. They're not like, oh wow, a cello. Like
Right.
Yeah.
the way I'm on stage, like, dude, there's a fucking cello. How sick is this? Like
Going around just pointing at every instrument. Real instrument. Look.
Maybe what I should do is get those paper signs with how much things cost with an arrow, just to like see.
It's like pop-up video.
Exactly.
Like, before Lorin wraps it up, I also just wanted to chime in and thank the whole team for being so kind to the Roach Koach and letting us into the show and letting us kind of have an opportunity to talk to some people that are into nu metal outside of our podcast walls. One of the things that I know for our show that we're going to be doing is we will be conducting little interviews with people that we can cut up and start putting online. And some of the questions that we have would be as simple as, who's your person? You like Wes? Are you more of a Corey Taylor guy? So we're going to do stuff with who's your guitarist, who's your band, but one of the things that even to this day, 8 years into doing this show, we can't answer because it's like holding water. It just keeps slipping out of your hands. Is what is nu metal? So I'm going to round robin it. We'll go Zach, Brian, Corey. To you, what is nu metal? So
I wanted to go last so I can say some prolific stuff that doesn't mean anything, like it's a way of life, and if you know, or something like that.
I like it.
I can't describe it, but I know when I look at it. That's
right.
But for me, I would say nu metal was the era where metal took itself more seriously from a content standpoint. So like hair metal was kind of silly and like intentionally silly, right? And so it became serious and kind of dark again, like kind of like old heavy metal was, like Iron Maiden and stuff like that. But then they also brought in the bravado and instrumentation of hip hop, right? So they kept some of the bravado from hair metal, but it became like the darker, more kind of like gangster version of metal, right? Where it's like, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me, like. And then obviously there's DJs and there's samples and there's a lot of like the electronic elements. So that to me is what nu metal is. Like I even debate with people whether or not Slipknot's nu metal if they're just metal, right? Like one could argue Slipknot was just a metal band, but then you could, say, well, Corey kind of raps fast, and so it's like, okay, maybe they're nu metal, right? But like Limp Bizkit and Korn to me are just like the quintessential, and Linkin Park, I think, are like the 3 quintessential bands that, like, if you sound even remotely like one of those 3 bands, you're nu metal. But there's obviously the whole sphere around that, right? Like Hinder is clearly not nu metal. Oh, thanks, we get it.
Is it clear? I don't think it's clear, Zach.
Like if Lips of an Angel had like a fucking sick turntable solo, like like an Incubus song did, then it's nu metal.
Oh my god!
All right. Well,
all right. I cede my time to the senator from Kentucky.
So it's a great question, and again, it goes back to like, does it fucking matter, right? But as a fellow rock and roll podcaster, shameless plug time, I have a show called Rock and Roll Bedtime Stories, and we talk about rock history, and so we take each episode is about bands or periods of rock history, and we are actually working in production right now. Be the first to know on an episode. We've never done anything on Godsmack before, but we are doing an episode that involves Godsmack. And Godsmack's an interesting band to me because they're not quite nu metal, but they are kind of, depending on who you talk to, right?
Yep.
And they were very, very influenced by grunge. Their whole thing was, Sully's thing was, I want to be the singer instead of the drummer, and I want to sound like Alice in Chains. And so, I mean, all of that music to me it's about people taking what they love and reinventing it. And so Zach's point, nu metal to me is of a certain period, sort of, but it's for me, it's, you know, of those early 2000 bands that took all of this stuff that they heard in 90s hip hop and all of this stuff they heard in 80s metal and were like, these are the things that make me happy, but I'm rethinking it and reinventing it. And also, I think, you know, to a conversation we were having, I don't remember if it was off mic or on mic, but about just how good some of these musicians are, then taking all that talent. And I think we forget how fucking good some of these bands are, right? Just as like technical musicians. And so being able to do all of that and make it something that makes them happy and is of the time and is of the period in which they live, I think it's awesome. That's what it is to me. But that, again, pretty verbose. So Corey, bring us home.
Well, I'll say hot take before Corey goes. I think Walk This Way, Run DMC remix is the first nu metal song. There, I said it. Find an older, more quintessentially nu metal song than that, and I'll give you an extra ticket to the show.
So to me, I might have a little different answer. So to me, like nu metal was like me getting up at like 11 a.m. in the middle of the summer and riding my Diamondback to my friend's house and smoking weed out of a Coke can. And
best answer ever.
and just finding an outlet because I wasn't like everyone else, right? Like I loved Alice in Chains and I loved Soundgarden, and no one that I played sports with or at school really like was into that stuff. And then all of a sudden I discovered like Korn and the Deftones, and I'm like, and Pantera, which is nu metal, but you know, it was in that time period, and I'm like, White Zombie, and then like I was an outcast for that, and then the next moment I'm like watching TRL and I'm watching Korn beat out NSYNC for like the #1 video, and I'm like, fuck all of y'all, because this is like, thank you. And then I got to experience it as a musician at the tail end, and like there's just nothing to me that a good heavy groove can't fix. Like it's just ingrained in me. So you know, that's what it is for me.
You can delete my answer and Zach's answer. Just do Corey.
Just keep the hot take about the Run DMC song.
Corey, I think it's a perfect way to sell it, and a perfect way to end it here. July 20th, Headliners Music Hall. A good groove, a good riff is going to make your night, and this is going to be a night full of them. So get your tickets now. Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville Loves Nu-Metal. Zach, Brian, Corey, thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it. And yeah, we will see you on the 20th, and we hope everyone listening will join us as well. All right.
Are you guys going to give away some tickets to your listeners? Did you mention that yet?
Yes, we are going to be giving away tickets to the listeners. So stay tuned to the good old Instagram and to the show, and we'll tell you how you can win.
Awesome. And I'm excited to have you interview people at our show. I think that's going to be fun.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. I got the tech shit buttoned up. Hopefully, I've done a couple test runs.
You're just gonna run up to people like Billy on the street and be like, "For $1, name a woman," and they're like,
That's it.
That's
$1. What is nu metal? What is
nu metal?
What?
It's smoking weed out of a Coke can. I don't know.
$1 for you.
My Diamondback.
Jonathan Davis or Jonathan Davis? What is? How do you say it?
How do you say it? All right. Well, guys, thanks so much. July 20th, it's coming up. It's going to be the show of shows.
Can't wait.
Hell yeah.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys. What a great bunch of guys, Matt.
Smoke weed out of a Coke can?
Oh,
This, if you're coming to Louisville Loves Nu-Metal, that's what we're looking for, baby. When we talk to you, we want that hard hitting truth.
That's right. Tell us the truth. Tell us the truth.
Tell us the truth.
That's right. Yeah, it's going to be the show shows, as I already said.
So excited. I am so excited to be there.
I'm so excited you're coming, Matt, and it's going to be great. So we've said it a million times. Get those ticks. If we haven't already posted the contest is coming. So if you want to win some ticks, that's an option as well.
So this is going to, so let's just help everybody.
Mhm.
If you're interested in winning tickets,
Mhm.
we are posting it on Instagram. Instagram is where it will be posted. So it will not be on Facebook. It will not be on YouTube. It won't be on TikTok.
No.
Instagram.
Instagram.com/Roach Koach. That is where you will find it. Matt, there's only one way to close out an episode of the Roach Koach podcast.
That's true.
And that is with Chad Radical's Rippers for Roaches.
Let rip.
Oh,
It's
beautiful.
still workshopping.
You know what? It's coming along well. It's coming
Thanks,
along
buddy.
well. I think it's coming along. Matt, who do we got this week?
Today, we have a band called Enhancer, and we have a song called, and I believe it's French.
Okay.
So, Control Pass. I can't play the whole thing, but
You
I
can't-
desire to play the whole thing.
Matt, it's crazy to imagine the construction of this song.
Oh, yeah.
That someone got in and they said, all right, at the beginning of the song, I'm going to go blah. And then you're going to go blah. And then this other guy who's like, he was just walking by and he goes, can I also go blah? And they were like, absolutely, get in here.
Absolutely. Good.
So everybody gets to do a blah.
Grab a mic.
Grab a mic. Then someone goes, hey, for the first verse, I want my buddy to do it. But I got to warn you, he's crazy. And they were like, get him in, get him on the mic.
But here's
And
the deal.
I-
For the second verse, my other buddy's going to come in. He's crazier.
And they were like, great, we've got so many mics in here. I am feeling the Enhancer mic budget very high. They had mics to go around.
And control pa.
Yeah. And then they were like, and then somebody, a wise man, a wise woman said, hey, I love all the maniacs on this song, and I don't want you to remove any of them. But it'd be great if at some point you got to a chorus. And they said, okay, it's going to take a while because we need to have every maniac get their moment, but we will get to a chorus. Matt, I was, to paraphrase Jerry Maguire, you had me at, and everything else was gravy. Everything else was gravy after that. The fact that they had two maniacs on the mic, the second maniac really raised the
Really
stakes.
went
And
for it. And the
was like,
rough French translation is kind of can't control, kind of out of control. Like you can't
Excellent.
control us.
I believe that 100%. That checks out. Checks out.
Checks out.
Matt, how'd you feel?
It felt great. I was excited. I was like, this is a ripper for Roaches.
It is. It's living up to the name, Chad Radical. You did it again. You did it again. And people have asked. They said, like, what does it take to get a playlist run on the Roach Koach podcast? And
Great
I said,
question.
well, it's gotta have some rippers and some bangers on it. But also you've got to give it a good name.
It's got to be for the Roaches.
It's got to have a good name. So when you're naming your playlist, make sure that you put some thought into that title. Just don't say, here's a list. What? We did Vandals Can't Handles.
Vandals Can't Handles.
All right. And now we have Rippers for Roaches. They've got to be thought put into the title. But
we had Andrew Wolf's. The Wolf of Nu-Metal. I just wanted to say that.
You just wanted to say it. That's fine. I enjoyed hearing you say it. Well, that does bring us, Matt, to the end of another episode of Roach Koach. Thank you so much. I know, right? Thank you so much for listening. Keep on saying hello to us online. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. We're on all of those. Send us an email, roachkoachpodcast@gmail.com. We will, of course, see you in person July 20th. Headliners Music Hall, Louisville, Kentucky. We're going to be there. We're going to be representing. You're going to be hearing some of the great nu metal songs interpreted by some of the greatest local artists that Louisville, Kentucky has to offer. And if you're saying, Lorin, Matt, I love you guys, but I can't make the trip. I can't make the trip.
I get that.
Matt gets it. I don't get it. I refuse to take that. You will have a second opportunity to see us in person July 23rd, Loserville at Pine Knob Music Theater, Clarkson, Michigan. We're going to be there. We're going to be on the lawn. I'm going to be there. Matt, you're going to be there.
I will be there.
Jenny's going to be there. Sweet Mitchell's going to be there.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be there. Get there. Team Fries. Have team fries with us. All right? All right? They're called team fries for a reason. You eat them with the
Part of
team.
the team.
That's right. So yeah, those are your options to see the coach this summer. It's the summer of the coach. And
8 years long, 8 years strong.
That's right. That's right, Matt. Absolutely. So until next time, Matt, thank you.
Lorin, thank you.
Roach
Riders and Indigo
Angels. Thank you.
Roach Koach
Podcast.
hot all day, every day. It's the Roach Koach
Podcast.
all day, all day.